It's all in your head. You don't look sick. Your tests are normal. It's probably anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you. Have you heard these words from physicians, family, and friends? If you're someone who has been struggling and swirling through the revolving door of healthcare to find answers about your health, or if you know someone who is going through this experience, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Desperate for a Diagnosis podcast with Laura Nozicka. Hello, and welcome to the Desperate for a Diagnosis podcast. I'm your host, Laura Nozicka, and we've got a pretty interesting podcast episode today. Not that the others aren't interesting, but this is something that's a little unusual, common yet unusual. And I know that I'm teasing all of you, just wondering what it is we're going to talk about today. But today we're really going to be talking about a journey of misdiagnosis and what the consequences are and what happens when doctors, unfortunately, don't give a patient the correct diagnosis and the correct direction to go in because of it. Today, I have Judy with me, and I'll tell you a little bit about her, but I'm excited to talk with her because we actually share a physical therapist in common, which is how she came to me, which was really kind of a cool thing. So let me tell you a little bit about Judy, and we'll dive into her story. All right. Judy is a communications professional who founded Visible Ink Communications Limited in 2006. With experience in public relations, marketing, and corporate communications, she has worked across various industries. Judy has managed award-winning communications campaigns for Fortune 500 companies and not-for-profit organizations. Prior to establishing her company, she held leadership roles in corporate communications at Cerva and USG Corporation, handling internal and external communications, media relations, and acting as a company spokesperson. So Judy naturally would have a lot to say with a really good story for us. So Judy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So like I said, we share a physical therapist in common, which is how we were introduced. Physical therapist relationships are one of those things where they become almost like your friends because you see a PT a couple times a week, and while you're there doing your leg exercises or your shoulder thing or whatever crazy thing he's got us doing, you talk about stuff. And our PT learned a lot about you, and he learned a lot about me, and he put it all together and thought, oh, Judy has a really good story. Laura's got this podcast called the Desperate for a Diagnosis podcast. That might be a really good relationship. So here we are.
Yeah. Philip's
Yes.
wonderful. Yeah. Like we were talking about before, he's not your typical physical therapist.
He is not. He is not. He's brilliant and definitely pushes the guardrails of what's a little more typical we might consider for physical therapy. So yeah, so he's a good guy. He's fixed a lot for me, an ankle, a neck problem. I think I cried in his exam room several times too.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yep. You just have those bad days. And he was really sweet after my dad passed away last year too. So yeah. Philip's the best. So Philip is very observant as well. And I want to talk about these symptoms that you were experiencing that led you to a diagnosis, but sadly was not the right diagnosis. And what we're going to talk about today, I'll give everyone the high level here, but we are going to talk about shingles, which does kick in after a certain age, I'll say. When we're a little more seasoned in life, I guess I'll put it that way. And, shingles is one of those things, at least for me anyway. I know now, it going on 54, and we hear about how the shingles vaccine is recommended, and we may know people who have had shingles, and we've heard some terrible stories. And I think we all pray we never
get it. And then, though we probably never consider the shingles vaccine, or we think about it and say, maybe, maybe not. But because I'm not a clinician, I did look up some of the high level detail on shingles, and so I just want to let everyone know first what shingles is, and then we can dive into the story. How's that sound for you, Judy?
That sounds great.
Cool. All right. So this is just a quick Google search, and Wikipedia is the reference here. But here, shingles, also known as herpes zoster, it's a viral disease characterized by a painful skin rash with blisters in a localized area. Typically, the rash occurs in a single wide mark, either on the left or the right side of the body or face. 2 to 4 days before the rash occurs, there may be tingling or local pain in the area. Other common symptoms are fever, headache, and tiredness. And it's, again, considered viral, and it's the same virus that causes chickenpox. So I don't know if you've had chickenpox or not. I certainly did as a kid, but seems to be more prevalent in folks that had pox. Did you have chickenpox, Judy?
Oh, absolutely. My mom said I was a baby and she said I had a terrible case. So you always wonder, like, if that contributes to you getting a bad case of shingles. Doctors can't say that, but you always wonder. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us about your journey to the shingles diagnosis. What were you experiencing? What were they like for you?
Well, it was odd because I had a weird tapping sensation behind my left eye. Felt like somebody was taking a finger from behind my eyeball and boop, boop, tapping it. And it was a lot of pressure and it felt weird. And I thought, well, that's odd. But, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, it went away. I got a really bad headache. But I had headaches, all throughout life. And I thought, it's just a headache. And I had to get an epidural shot in my back the next day. So I went in the next day and I couldn't take anything. And the headache was worse the next day. So I went in and got the shot. They put your head in a little, holder, and you lay down and you do your thing. And I got home and the headache was getting worse and worse and worse. And I thought, this is not right. I was able to take something that night, didn't go away.
And
Didn't even
Judy,
touch.
just to clarify, that shot, that epidural that you were going for, was that for something unrelated to?
Totally unrelated. It was a back issue.
Okay.
Right. So, because that's a precursor to what I'm going to tell you later. So why I ignored something on my face.
Yeah.
But yeah, so got the shot, went home, felt worse. And I've had the epidural shot a bunch of times and I've never had a headache after it. But it was able to take something later on and it didn't touch it. So, that was on a Wednesday. By Thursday, I woke up just screaming in pain and my eye was swollen. It was starting to swell shut. But that was the first day my husband took me to the emergency room. And they did all these tests, CT scan, blood work, and came up with the diagnosis of a cluster headache and sent me home with a bunch of pain medicine and, pumped me up with morphine. And I felt a little bit better. And you go home and you're like, oh, let's look up what a cluster headache is. So we did, right? You always look up diagnosis and it didn't look good. That's not good. But I thought, okay. So Friday passed and Saturday, the eye kept swelling up. The headache was still not going away. And by Saturday, I had tiny little blisters at my hairline, just a couple of them. And I figured they were from putting my head and the little headrest when I got my back shot. I didn't think I thought, oh, maybe my head broke. So stupid me, I popped them. Because I was wondering, I'm like, what are those? And you kind of push on them and they popped and they seemed to be gone. Well, by Sunday, I had more blisters and they were starting to appear, lightly, just at the hairline. And Sunday I woke up again and bad, bad, bad pain, like screaming in agony. It felt like there was like a lightning bolt going into my head through my eye. So like acid was being poured on my head. It felt like you had like fire ants. I thought, oh, what is this? And my eye was completely swollen shut. It was getting redder and redder. Blisters were starting to show up. Took me back to the ER. And they came up with cluster headache again. Even after I said, what are these blisters on my forehead? And the doctor looked at them and just said, you've got a cluster headache, and sent me home with the same pain meds.
Did the doctor explain to you what a cluster headache was?
No, they just said, this looks like a cluster headache. You're showing the symptoms of what a cluster headache is. And I had already looked it up, and it kind of made sense, but then kind of didn't. And I was in so much pain that I didn't think to ask any more questions, right? You're in the ER. You're like, all right, well, this is my diagnosis, right?
Right. You just wanted something for the pain and get out of it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So they sent me home with more pain meds, and I kept taking them, and they weren't touching the pain. And then Monday I woke up and I felt a little bit better. And that's when I went to see Philip. I thought it was my jaw, because I've had jaw problems for a while. And I thought, sometimes, your jaw's kind of related to your vision, right? Your eye. So I thought, well, maybe this is a jaw thing. And if he adjusts it, maybe some of this puffiness will go down. So I went to see Philip, and my mom took me because I couldn't see to drive. And somewhere while we were discussing things, he mentioned shingles, and I didn't hear it. My mom did, but he didn't, because the other thing that the shingles did is it affected my hearing in this ear. My ear was completely like swollen inside. So I was having a hard time hearing on top of it. So I didn't hear it. My mom thought I did, and we didn't discuss it. But at that point, it was too late to get onto had I gone to the ER that day or to a doctor that day and gotten on the antivirals, I was already past the 72 hours to get on the antivirals. So the next day I woke up in just agony again, and my husband took me back in, and the doctor took one look at me and said, this is shingles.
This was an ER doctor?
ER doctor. Yeah. It's an ER right down the street from us. So it's very convenient. It was it was early in the morning and at night. So we're like, why did you go to the doctor? Well, there was no doctor open over the weekend or late at night. And we couldn't find, an emergency clinic that was open. So we thought, ER's right down the street. Let's go there. He did. He said, you've got shingles. He gave me the antivirals, in a pill form, and sent me home. And I landed back in the ER that same day, same afternoon, just in so much pain. Nothing was touching pain. And my husband goes, you're going back. And I'm like, okay, let's go back. So
visit number 4 for you.
Visit number 4. They admitted.
How many days?
This was over the course of, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 5 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they admitted me because at that point it settled in. And I've since discovered, since this has all happened almost a year later, that when it hits your eye, you're more likely to have more pain and develop this postherpetic neuralgia, which is what I've developed. Anyway, so I ended up in the hospital and spent almost 5 days there, and was on IV antivirals, morphine, name the pain med. I was on it. It was super painful. But during that time, the nurses were great. During that time, we were able to dry up most of my my blisters. They had started drying up, and they said, this is good that they're dry. So I was getting all hopeful, right? And like, oh, my blisters are drying up. So I thought, we're going to be done with this.
That was the result of the antivirals or something else?
That was just the result of my skin healing, calamine lotion and lots of wet cloths that had apparently nothing to do with the antivirals, because they sent me home. The doctor told me it was the worst case of shingles they'd ever seen. And they said, we're sending you home with a PICC line and about 3 weeks of antivirals.
Wow.
So I came home and, they sent me the big box of, the IV and the whole setup. And it was kind of scary. They had a nurse coming often to test my blood because the antivirals are really hard on your kidneys. And so we came home, and I was just kind of out of it for probably a good month. just there were so many I was taking so much medicine and it made me really sleepy. So, you thought, okay, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep for a while and we're going to kick this, right? So that's what I thought. And that didn't happen.
Wow. So even when you came home after being discharged from the hospital, you were still having pain and issues and a whole nother several weeks of medication and nurses in and out of your house. And so at this point, I'm curious, what type of physician is managing this for you?
Well, when I was in the hospital, it was and I'm calling it I'm on Lyrica and I'm just calling this Lyrica brain. So it takes me a second to think of it. It was a contagious disease doctor. And so once they figure out that you have shingles and they've treated you, that doctor kind of says, okay, I can't do anything more for you. You have to go to pain management and also see a neurologist. So I went to see my neurologist and she basically said, like maybe about a month into this, she said, I give it a couple months, but they said at this point, and they diagnosed me with postherpetic neuralgia kind of early. Usually it's 3 months after you have shingles, but I was only about a month, 6 weeks after, and I was still having a lot of pain. So she said, go ahead and go to your regular doctor for pain management. And she said, I really can't do anything more for you. She said, maybe a couple months, you'll be back on your feet. I'm like, all right. So that didn't happen either.
And you were seeing the neurologist because of the nerve pain, the nerve involvement. Is that the main reason?
I mean, yeah. And because I was on nerve medication and, at that point I was taking, a medium dose of the nerve medication. So after that, my pain continued to get worse. And my regular doctor said, well, you can take a little bit more nerve medicine. So I doubled what I was taking. And I got terrible, like shakes and tremors that lasted probably a couple of weeks. But my pain was getting better because we had upped my nerve medication dose. I'm like, oh, this is better. And I didn't care about, shaking and tremors. I just was happy to not have any more pain or less pain. But, my husband and I were talking, he said, you really probably should go see the neurologist, that this doesn't seem right. So I went to see the neurologist and right away she's like, you might have brain damage from this postherpetic neuralgia. And I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I, panic. She said, all these tremors, this isn't right. And I said, well, could it be from the medication? And she said it could. She said, let's back off on the medication and see how you do. Well, within a day, I cut back on my medication, the tremors. So she insisted on getting an MRI of my brain. And everything seemed to be fine. So I was joking, I already have brain damage. So if there's any in there.
Sometimes, Judy, you have to find the tumor
right
in your
she didn't think it was very funny. She's a very serious neurologist. I'm like, thank you for that. But yeah, I was trying to lighten the mood. And we were okay. So we had to dial back on the medication and the pain it was relentless. It's just a relentless burning pain. And then itching started. I had itching and I didn't even know that this could be a thing. And I still have it in certain periods, but for a while there, you scratch until you bleed. I had scabs all over my face. I'm like, what happened? I just got rid of all these, blisters and I've got scabs all over. So I guess
that was from the itching, Judy.
It's from the nerve damage called postherpetic neuralgia.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of I guess they call it postherpetic itching. And a lot of patients get it. Where the nerve damage, it's a form of pain. So you'll be itchy, you'll have burning, you'll still have sometimes it feels like somebody's taking a cattle prod, to your head and just kind of shocking you. So every once in a while, I'll be embarrassed because I'll be with my friends and I'll just it'll shock you and you just kind of twitch, So.
Wow. Well, I hope you've never been met by a cattle prod to really know.
I haven't. I'm guessing that's what it feels. So this, I'm just using it. I'm using that as an analogy because I'm guessing that that's probably what it feels like. So
Yeah.
I
My
have no
gosh.
idea.
So this is all these symptoms are mainly happening in your head, your scalp, your face, or in other areas?
Head, scalp, face, around my eye. Um, so yeah, so I'm thinking, well, I'm getting better. I'm more itchy. The pain was dialing down a little teeny tiny bit. It's like you feel like you make progress, like a teeny tiny bit of progress every couple of months. All of a sudden you're like, "Hmm." So that went on for several months, but the itching was just, unbelievable. So my doctor prescribed lidocaine cream. And and I'm getting itchy right now. I want to scratch my face. I'm trying not to touch my face. No, the lidocaine cream, numbs you and it's wearing off. So that's all they can give me. There's not a lot to treat this. And because it's around my eye, I'm really not supposed to use lidocaine around my eye, but I did, and it's damaged. I found out from the ophthalmologist because I have to go see the ophthalmologist regularly to check my eye. It damaged my retina. So he
Oh,
said quit the lidocaine, but it's the only thing that I can use to really stop the bad itching. That and ice. So those are kind of the two go tos. So I ice a lot. I have a little ice hat that I put on. Um, And I tell a lot of folks, on my support group on Facebook, if they've got this on their head or on their body, on the head, there are these caps that you can wear that actually are good for migraines, but you can use it
yeah.
for when you've got postherpetic neuralgia on your head and face. So they work great.
How often do you have to do that now, Judy? Has it changed since the
It's
beginning?
changed a little. It's gotten a little bit better. I was doing it like, every hour. Um, on the hour. And now it's down to I absolutely have to wear it when I go to bed. Night, the itching and the pain gets worse. So I'll put it on when I'm watching TV. And then I have this big, really cold ice pack that I just lay on my head when it gets really bad. And you're kind of counting the minutes until you can take your meds again, you know? So I don't go out a lot. The one thing that this has done is it keeps you in the house, it keeps you from going out because you don't know when this itch attack and the pain and the zaps are going to happen, right? Um, so yeah, so the ice packs, I bring them with me if I go anywhere. My friends all know now, Judy's got a big bag of ice packs she brings with her, and my lidocaine cream. So I've got very understanding friends. They're very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a good support system with friends. How would you say this affected things at home for you?
Um, I feel my poor husband, he's been very sweet. But I think he feels helpless because, when I've got really bad itching and pain, he's like, I wish I could help you, but there's nothing he can do. And I always assure him, there's nothing you can do. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to scratch over here. I'm just going to sit here and scratch my head, look like a crazy person for a while. And then, you just kind of get through. You put one foot in front of the other. Right. So
Yeah.
that's basically what we do. But he's been very supportive, and my friends have been very supportive. And it was funny the day I went into the hospital, one of my good friends, she went to get her first shingle shot that day.
Oh, wow.
She had no idea, just like I didn't have any idea that you could get this in your eye. I that's why I never thought it was shingles because I had never heard of it, attacking the eye. It's always the torso. So yeah,
Right.
she went actually the day I was admitted to the hospital. She said, I went and got my shot, my first shot. I'm like, good for you.
Wow. And she had known what you'd been going through, or it was just
Oh,
coincidental?
yeah. Well, I mean, she knew that I had the shingles. She knew I was in the hospital and did that. And then now all of my friends have been really supportive of, um, and good that they're listening to my advice because they all went and got their shingle shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's good. I've had some friends, so shame on me. I haven't gone yet, but um, I have some friends who have gone and they did okay because it's a series of two, correct?
right.
If I understand right. And they did okay on the first one. And then the second one was not so fabulous for a few of my friends where it just knocked them out for a couple of days. But you had a second shot um, back in, I think it was like July or so, because we were supposed to record back then. And it really
Right.
whipped things up for you just because your body, your nerves have already gone through all of this. So you had a little bit of a challenge with that second shot.
I did. And my doctor warned me that I probably would. So I had 104-degree fever, and that just makes you all achy, but it only lasted about a day and a half, and then it kind of whipped up all the symptoms in my head and eye again. So yeah, for probably a couple of weeks. So I was pretty scabby and itchy for a while. I've scratched some of my hair off too. You don't like some of the things that happen, you don't even realize like that that I've rubbed almost all my eyelashes off my left eye until you try to put some mask. I try to wear a little makeup once in a great while. I don't usually because it just irritates things. But every once in a while, you want to try to look put together.
Yeah.
Aren't any eyelashes left?
Oh my God. Well, you look great today.
Oh, you're sweet. Well, I put makeup on for you.
Awesome. You look lovely. You look
Thank
lovely.
you. You're sweet.
Oh, so and again, Judy, this is a year now. Is that right?
I'm coming up on a year in October,
Okay.
and I'm seeing a new pain management doctor. We're trying nerve blocks right now, where he blocks a particular nerve branch that he thinks is damaged, and it seems to have been helping. We've done it twice now. The first time it helped for about 5 days. The second shot I had last week, so it seems to be helping a little bit. But we don't know how long it'll last. So, and he basically told me I probably have another year or more until I can see more of a light at the end of the tunnel. That this nerves take a long time to heal,
Yeah. Wow.
unfortunately. So
So, and that's helping with the itching mainly, or another kind of pain?
everything really, it helps with the itching, and it helps with the burning and that sort of stabbing cattle prod shock that I told you about earlier. So it kind of, it's cooled things down a little bit. Now the itching and the burning, it's always there, but I call it a low boil. It just goes down to or a simmer, really. It kind of simmers. And I like when it simmers. That's what you want. Or gone if you can get it. I haven't had it gone yet, but I've come really close. And I mean, I've had days where I'm thinking, wow, this is fantastic. So I think we're getting there. It's just going to be, this is going to be a little bit of a haul yet. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What does he think that would look like for you another year or so down the road?
he's not sure. That's the problem with this. Once you get postherpetic neuralgia, there's limited things that you can do, limited treatments, limited medications. Some things are very invasive. There's one surgeon, he's in Nebraska, and he has actually come up with a new surgery that a couple of people in my support group have actually had already. Very invasive. But so there's a little hope there. But what they do is the neurosurgeon will cut into your head where you've got damage, and he buries the nerves in your muscle in your head. And then you're just numb for the rest of your life in those areas.
So he makes the cut more like on the surface into your scalp or
Scalp,
not,
over your eyebrow, just
not
not your
into
brain.
brain. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Just where the nerve damage is at the top here. And they've reported back wonderful outcomes, but it's invasive. And one lady that had it done, I mean, she had in the same exact spot as me. And she just had the itching for 7 years. And she said she felt like she was going crazy, which it does make you feel like you're going crazy
I'm
sometimes.
sure.
I can't imagine 7, 8, 10, 12 years of this. So those folks had good results, but I'm not to that point where, I want to go do something like that. So we'll see. There are other options. Well, they become more invasive.
Right. Is that a
Yeah.
one-time procedure as far as this doctor's concerned, or is it multiple?
That's a one-time procedure in that area. Those nerves are no longer a problem. So that doesn't mean you're not going to get shingles again. That's what scares me. And that's why I'm like a walking shingles vaccine commercial now. I mean, I post PSAs on social media to my friends and colleagues, and luckily they're all saying thank you. I went and got my shingles vaccine. I had one friend who didn't listen, and she got shingles about 6 months later after I had it. And I said, "Oh," she sent me a little picture. "Is this shingles?" I said, get to your doctor right now." But yeah, so
Yeah. So did she get the antivirals in time then?
she did, and she had it on her torso. So it was good. But I've talked to other folks. I mean, I know some people that have had shingles 4, 5, 6 times, and that's scary. So even if you get the vaccine, um, you could still get it, but you're gonna most likely not get a bad case of it, and you're not going to develop postherpetic neuralgia, the nerve damage.
Yeah.
So that's why you get the vaccine. And I would wish this on anybody. I don't want anybody to ever get this.
Oh,
So
so awful. Oh gosh. And just invading every part of your life at the same time.
it does. And it's funny because people look at you and go, "Well, you look fine." And it's hard because you put on a brave face and you look fine. And again, I've been staying close to home. I don't go far. Because you need all your creams, lotions, potions, your pills, your ice hats, your ice packs,
Your bed, your own bed.
your bed, right? If you need to lay down and go to sleep, so take a nap. But yeah, so it's been really frustrating. Um, and I don't, again, that's why I don't want anybody to ever contract this, because it really does take over your life. Some days I'm lucky I can work. I have my own business. I work from home. I work, I eat, I sleep. That's all I have energy for, and then other days you feel a little bit better. So, you know, you just take one day at a time.
Yeah. How did you find the right physicians to work with?
I think it might have been, was it through Philip gave me some suggestions, my physical therapist. And then I think I finally,
Philip of ours, I'm telling you, he's a
yeah, he told me about a therapy they're doing in this physician's office. Now, the physician doesn't do the therapy. Somebody in his office does this. It's called scrambler therapy. And of course, Philip had already gone and seen a demonstration of it because he's on top of everything, right?
yeah, he is.
Yeah. But it's out of pocket. It's an interesting therapy that can help postherpetic neuralgia patients, but it's thousands of dollars out of pocket. And I've tried a lot. I tried acupuncture, you try these alternative treatments, and I paid a lot of money. And when the needles were in my head, pain was gone. As soon as she took them out, it came rushing back.
Wow.
And I said, "Can't I just walk around with the needles in my head?" And she said, "No, you can't do that." But said, "I don't feel it when you put the needles in there."
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
that really tells you something about what could work, which maybe
right,
kind of validate what that doctor in Nebraska is doing.
right.
With his nerve treatment. So yeah, there's something to it. It's just finding how to make it permanent. But it's true with all of these alternative modalities, which for some conditions they do help and they do work. And sadly, people are selling their cars and selling
Right.
things just to get this treatment because it's not covered by insurance. Um,
It's not. Yeah. And, I was kind of shocked that at this point that, you couldn't get a little something, something from the insurance company for, even acupuncture is becoming kind of a mainstream
yeah.
treatment for a lot of things. But for whatever reason, our plan didn't cover it. So I paid, $1,200 out of pocket for it not to work, which, you don't know until you try it and you get desperate, you get desperate for something to work. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not like going to the store and trying on a pair of pants and oh, they don't fit. I can take it back, or oh, this didn't work. Send it
right.
back. Get a refund.
Can't get a refund. No.
Not a lot of refunds to be had in healthcare, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's worth a try though. It was worth a shot. So, if we win the lottery, I'll go try the scrambler therapy because it's an interesting, like the surgery that this one surgeon does in Nebraska. It's an interesting new modality that, could work. So
What do you know about it, Judy, or how it works?
well, Philip has explained it to me. And then I also actually talked to a woman in the office that knows about it. But it's called scrambler therapy. And it's really interesting because what they do, and they can treat a lot of different pain conditions, including, nerve pain. But from what I understand, is they'll take, it's not invasive. It's just like suction cups, on the area of the body where you have the pain. And they find healthy nerves and they cross the healthy nerves with your damaged nerves. And it tricks them into thinking they're healthy, which I think is amazing. Science is amazing.
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I watched, all the videos of people who said it worked for them, including a man that had postherpetic neuralgia. It was on his torso and he said, it was amazing that it's all gone. His pain is gone.
Wow.
So I'm like, hurry up and get that research done so you get that through insurance, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's too bad because there's plenty of less traditional medicines out there or approaches that unfortunately insurance just will not cover until there's proof or it's been used
Right.
for years, and then it starts off really expensive and then it might get a little cheaper. But right now everything's fee for service on a lot of these things. So yeah, you don't have to wonder why people are selling their cars, and it's just to get some cash to feel better. It's really sad commentary on our healthcare system.
It is. And I'm sure that could be a whole other discussion for another day. Right. I agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get sick. Just don't get sick because, yeah, unfortunately.
Now, the support group you mentioned, Judy, what's the name of it?
It's actually called the Postherpetic Neuralgia Support Group on Facebook.
Oh, okay. So it's very specific to
Very specific. There are some other support groups that are focused on nerve damage, including postherpetic neuralgia. They call it PHN for short.
Okay.
But this particular group, and there are people from all over the world, which is really interesting because, in some countries, they're not big on vaccines. So many of us in the US who have already had shingles have gone ahead and gotten the shingles vaccine, obviously now because we want to prevent it, if at all, ever occurring again. But some folks have not gotten the vaccine. And like I said before, they've had shingles, 5, 6, 7 times, and they can't work anymore. I mean, their pain levels are, through the roof. So they had to quit their work or quit their, quit recreational activities, quit exercising. So it's, the stories I read are heart wrenching for some of these folks. I hate to say it, but I feel kind of lucky that I can still operate at some level. I can work and, but some of these folks they're in bad shape.
Wow, that's incredible that it could recur that much. You would think that at some point you're building up some kind of immunity to it, but apparently not. Something just kind of triggers the virus. And we were talking a little bit about if you had chicken pox at one point, and we talked a little bit in our pre-chat about how stress is such a huge factor to shingles.
Oh, it's funny because I have one friend said, he had worn his body down, staying up late, working a lot. And then he went to a concert and he was sitting and he said, I felt like somebody was burning me with a cigarette. And I kept looking back like, why are you doing that? He was at a Metallica concert, I thought I was laughing. And
It's possible for something like that to happen.
I suppose, right? Anything can be possible. But, right? He got home. And he's looking and he said, there weren't cigarette burns. There was a huge rash. But for him, the lead up to it was a week of staying up really late and, kind of wearing his body down. For me, we had kind of a firestorm of, um, our mama cat had gotten sick very quickly. We had to put her down. The same day we had to put her down, John, my husband's mom, had a heart attack, and we were getting ready to sell our house and move. And there were a couple of other things that happened. And it just was a perfect storm of, it wore me down, you know? And, I mean, I can think back and go, yeah, that's what did it. So stress will bring it on. And the doctor told me stress could bring it on again. And he also informed me that wherever you get it on your body, that's where it'll always go. So mine will always go in. He said, you got to be really careful because it can show up in your eye at any time and you could go blind the next time. They said, oh, you could go blind. I was thinking, oh, I hope not. But the next time he said, every time you get it, it does more damage. So that's why you don't want to get it or limit it to once. Right. So
That's that's so scary. I mean, any virus, obviously, as we know in recent years, scary, but shingles sounds like it can come back with a vengeance if you don't get that vaccine.
yeah. And, some of the stories I've read, I never realized, like I said before, that you can get it in your eye. You always think of the torso. But I mean, people in my group, they've had it in their spine. They've
Oh,
had it in their other regions
yeah.
and have pain and, this postherpetic neuralgia. Can't even imagine what they're going through. So it can show up pretty much anywhere in your body. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend whose pathway took to torso, but down her backside and
Ugh.
vaginally also.
Oh,
Just
that's awful.
really horrible. It's all horrible, but
It's horrible because you can't have anything. Everybody's like, why don't you slap a hat on your head and you'll feel better? You can't have anything on your skin. Like I can't wear a hat. Just a light breeze ruffling my hair will send me into orbit some days. So, if you have it on your torso or you can't wear clothes or underwear, nothing. I mean, so that gets really challenging. I shouldn't say I'm lucky I have it on my head, but I don't have to worry about trying to put on clothes and go to work.
right.
That's rough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no one good option for sure.
No.
There- It's one of those things. If you're gonna have it, it's better if you have this. Well,
Right. No.
it doesn't sound like any option is good. Any
No.
location. Yeah, it's been such a long haul for you, Judy. But what are the silver linings? I always ask guests what the silver linings are, if any, through this whole journey thus far.
I would say, to help people avoid getting it. Again, I've been telling everybody I can, get your shingles vaccine. And I'm that's the silver lining, that I'm a walking, you know, talking ad for don't get this. You do not want to get this. And I'm hoping that I'm helping people. I hope I've helped a few people avoid it. That's my silver lining.
Yeah.
And if I can help more, I'd love to. So I'm gonna keep preaching. Get your vaccine.
I'm going to see your picture on a commercial or a billboard one of these days. I know.
Oh no, I hope not.
But since you're a writer, has your experience changed how you approach writing projects in any way?
Well, I've actually started writing an article that I'm gonna pitch. I wanna start pitching it. Um, and I've put an outline together, but I'd like to tell my own story because I think I've shocked so many people by my story that never knew you could get it in this particular area. And I think it would be good to kind of shock people into going, wow, I had no idea. I'm going to get my vaccine. And then I also want to talk to some doctors about, maybe some of the up and coming treatments would be great. And I know they're still working on things. I mean, this postherpetic neuralgia has been around for 100 years. I looked it up. It's been around forever. And there have really been no new treatments for it. So, but there's more and more people are getting it. So it looks like more, you know, medical professionals are starting to, look at, hey, what can we do for this? So yeah, so that's what I'm hoping. I hope I can maybe write and tell my story and save a few people from ever contracting this.
Yeah.
So
Is this neuralgia specific to shingles, or could it happen from other conditions that you're aware of?
it's specific to shingles. It's specific to the herpes zoster virus,
Okay.
which causes shingles. And I forgot to add before, and it was another. I actually had developed two nerve conditions. One's called trigeminal neuralgia. Now you can get that on its own without getting shingles in your face, but I developed it because of where the nerve damage was in my head. So it's another painful, kind of burning, lightning sensation that was coming. It was kind of cutting through my face, and that's really settled down. But that's if you get it in your head, that's another potential nerve condition that you can develop.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention. Yeah.
Was those nerves kind of come off your jaw?
Jaw.
Coming towards your into your face, right?
Right. And that's why, when I first went in too, and I said, I can't hear out of this ear. I could feel swelling in my jaw, in my ear. And then finally, the neurologist said, yeah, it can cause swelling in wherever you've got it. So, yeah. So, trigeminal neuralgia, they've got, some treatments for that as well, but again, not a lot, very limited. And sometimes you just have to write it out for a couple of years. Some people have it for the rest of their life. So that was another one that I had a friend that had developed it a couple of years ago. And so I was actually aware of it and didn't even think that would be a possibility for me. But the doctor said, yep. So you've got two things going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited for you that you want to write your story and get it out there. I'm hoping that this is a good launch pad for you with being on the podcast.
I hope so too. I hope so. Thank you. And thank you for doing this, because I really feel like the more we talk about it, more people will learn about it and, get themselves vaccinated and avoid it. So thank you. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Is there any part of your story that we missed?
I think, one other point I would probably make is like, I would hope that if you have a friend or a relative that gets it and is complaining about pain months and months later, but looks normal, have patience, because they really are in pain. They're not faking it, like when you can look at somebody and go, you look fine, but you don't know what they're going through when they go home. And, so I just hope that's the other, I guess, a little bit of advice I would give is just have some patience if you can, and hand them some ice. Ice is our friend.
Always have ice on hand, whether it's for neuralgia or cocktails, right?
Or cocktails help. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for sharing your story. And thanks to Philip for introducing us so that we can get this really important information out to everyone. So thank you, Judy, for being here.
And if anyone would like to see pictures of Judy's shingles on her head, I have some photographs for you to take a look at on the podcast Facebook page, as well as Instagram at Desperate for a Diagnosis.
And thank you, everyone, for listening in. I'm Laura Nozicka, your host of the Desperate for a Diagnosis podcast. Stay well and keep pushing for answers.
Oh my goodness, that's a wrap on another compelling story. Thanks for listening to the Desperate for a Diagnosis podcast. If you would like more information about today's guests or to find out more about Laura, go to desperateforadiagnosis.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow show updates and healthcare news on the podcast's Facebook page. If you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you have any questions, advice, or suggestions for our guests, please email me at lauramarie@desperateforadiagnosis.com. Please note, I am not a medical professional, nor am I affiliated with any healthcare, pharmaceutical, or device company. I am an entrepreneur and an independent market researcher focused on helping healthcare organizations better understand the patient perspective. The podcast is not meant to offer medical advice, but to merely share the stories and perspectives of podcast guests.